Good morning. Happy Saturday. Glad you could join me. Today we're going to be starting the class standing. That's why we're standing. You may need a chair for some balance or a wall. Primarily going to work on your balance today. And then we'll finish off with doing some things for your lower body in terms of your hips. But again, everything is optional, and if there's things that you obviously can't do, you could always email me after the class, and I can always adapt the practice for you. So just an update, we're continuing to make the masks. Winnie's been making the masks. She's going to be sending them out soon to a hospital clinic in San Francisco. So all the donations, 10% of the proceeds are going towards the masks. And we have been giving them out locally as well. It's just because of the situation, there's really not a lot of people out. It's just we've given them out to postal workers, and it's just it's a little bit more difficult here on the East Coast. So I hope you're all doing well. If you can only do a portion of the class, all the classes are on my YouTube channel. And so in starting, I'm just going to have my feet about the width of my hips, and I'm just going to work on the balance of bringing weight either forward in the front of the feet or into the heels. So if I'm, a great thing to do is taking a picture of yourself from the side, so you can really see a lot in terms of why you would have more weight in the front of your feet or in the heels. So if I'm standing from the side and my hips naturally carry forward, well, that's why my weight is forward, and that's why I have the weight forward. But for some people, it's the rounding in the shoulders and the head. So you got to kind of, again, take a profile picture, and then you'll really see that. So when you're in a position and standing, I'm just going to be transferring the weight now side to side. So just bringing the weight side to side. So when people fall, right, obviously the weight gets too far into one side of the foot, and that's partially why people would fall. So what you can do is just take the hands behind you and hook the thumbs, and just look over the right shoulder, look over the left, look over the right, look back over the left, then look center. And then when you're looking center, you can look up and then back down and then over, like carrying over to a rainbow. The more you can move your eyes, the more you'll be able to move the body. So looking at things that you can't necessarily see makes a big difference. So with your thumbs hooked, come up on the toes with the heels up off the floor. So some people turn their feet too far out, you'd want to turn them in. And some people turn their feet in, you'd want to turn them out. You could be coming up and down. That's a great practice. So if I come up on the toes, you may be falling, which is perfectly fine, just to warm up the feet and the legs. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the legs, I'm just going to take them into a neutral position. I'm going to take the arms forward, and then I'm going to come up on the toes, and I'm going to bring my hips to the height of my knees. Yeah, we'll do it, yeah. He wants to do a warrior pose, so he's been practicing. So come back up to the height of your hips, bring yourself back up, bring your arms down, take your arms all the way up overhead, and then again, just kind of see how you hold the weight, and then come up on the toes. You can lift the heels off the floor. So come up on your toes. No, just stay up on your toes. And then lower the heels and exhale, lower the arms. And what we're going to do is take the feet out in a wide position. So take your feet out in a wide position, and then turn your right foot out to the right. And then when you turn your right foot out to the right, you could bend your right knee. And then as you bend your right knee, you're going to take the arms out to the height of your shoulders, and you're lifting your thighs up and out. And maybe a warrior one works better, and that's what Noah's in. It really depends on the person's hips. Typically lateral positions are easier. So if I'm out wide with my arms, I'm going to turn my thumbs up and turn my thumbs back. And then I'm just going to turn the thumbs back down. So rotating the shoulders in and then rotating the shoulders back. And you can switch sides, of course, right? I'm going to come onto my right side with my right elbow, and then I'm turning my upper body to the left. All right, so I'm just going to do the left just so that you can see me better. But when I'm opening up through the chest, I'm really trying to use my abdomen to do that, right? You could, yeah, you're pretty low. Then you can take the top arm up, you know, and the same thing, like if you have tight shoulders, I'd be moving the arm more. Like static is good, but it might not necessarily be enough, right, to help with your shoulders. Bring yourself back up into a warrior two. And again, lift up through the thighs. Again, you could keep manipulating the arms just a little bit, you know. Obviously, we don't want to do this to the point where it irritates you. And then have the front leg straight and then lift up and out to the side. And then take the top arm up. Yeah, and then when you take the top arm up, you're turning through the belly, you're turning through the chest. You know, you're really trying to expand out. And again, I say this all the time, I play around with the height. You know, explore different ranges and you'll see exactly where you need to be in time and space. Bring yourself back up, and then when you come back up, we're gonna go over to the other side. For you, it's the left side. So take the arms out wide, bend your left knee, lift your thighs up and out, and then as you lift the thighs up and out, you're, you know, getting stronger in the feet, getting more upright, lifting through the top of the head. And you know, again, if you're taking a photograph, you're looking over the front hand, but you may need to look to the other hand. See where it's actually more difficult for you to turn to, and that's the best direction for you in this type of position. But again, you could keep manipulating the arms. Bring your left forearm on your left thigh. Have your left hand on your hip. Keep lifting up and away from your hips. Take the top arm up, and then when you take it up, you can open through the chest. Which side do you want to do? This side? Okay, turn the foot out. Okay, bend your knee. Take a couple deep breaths. That's it. Bend your right knee. Good, good, good. And then have that front leg straight. Right, come back up. And then reach out to the left. Grab the left shin. And then when you grab the left shin, again. Yeah. So left hand, left shin. Right arm up. You got it. Perfect. That looks great. So as you push through the feet, try to turn through the belly, try to turn through the ribs. Over time, the front foot can be more straight. Right now, it might be a little crooked, which is fine, right? And then bring yourself back up. And then when you come back up, just come back to having the feet neutral. And then just step the feet back together. And again, see how you're standing. So use your feet to lift up. You know, there could be a soft bend in the knees. If you're a person that has kind of a terminal knee extension, that's where you can't straighten the legs out. You really want to get the legs to be more straight, and that takes a while, right? So just have your feet together, and with your feet together, step your left foot in front of your right foot. So this is like a tightrope position. So if my feet are crooked, it's easier to balance, and that's a good place to start. But over time, when you get the feet to be straight, you can be more upright. Again, if you have a lot of weight in your back foot, you're leaning back too far. That's just how you stand. If you have a lot of weight forward, you're pitching forward with your head in some capacity. You could do this with your eyes closed. And you can open the eyes, you can bring the feet back together, step the right foot in front of the left foot. And when you do, you know, again, it's okay if the feet aren't perfectly lined up. But over time, you can get them to line up, and then it's just more difficult to balance in. And then when you get that line, then you can close the eyes. And when you close the eyes, you're most likely going to be more off balance. And then you can bring the feet back into a neutral position. So back into neutral, what we're going to do is come to the top of your mat. And then when you come to the top of your mat, you can inhale, take the arms up overhead. So you can reach the arms up overhead. And then you'll fold forward into a forward fold. And then you're going to bend the knees so both feet will be forward. And what you're going to do is step your left foot back into a lunge. So your left foot is back and your right foot is forward. And you know, this is just to help with, because when you get into like positions of the hips, I'm working up towards a half moon pose for you. So it's really based on your hamstrings and your hips. If that's already really tight, that's going to be difficult to be in a position like that. So take the right arm up to the ceiling so the right arm is high and the left hand is low. And if you like the manipulation in the shoulders, rotate the arm in, rotate it out. Rotating in is probably going to be much easier for you. It's really the rotation out that you need. And then bring the right hand down and then move the left foot in a little bit closer and then have the right leg straight. So you're in a pyramid. So I'd be up on a chair or blocks if I had a really difficult time in my hamstring. I'm going to do this a few times. I'm going to bend my right knee a little bit, and then I'm going to straighten through the front leg. I'm going to bend my right leg, and then I'm going to straighten out. I'm going to bend the knee again, and then I'll straighten through the right leg. And then bend the right leg and then step the left foot forward, so both feet are forward. Step the right foot back into a lunge. And then just kind of move the weight around. I say this all the time, you know, you've tight hips, it's going to take time for you to really get more range. And that's perfectly fine, right? But it'll help with the future of, you know, doing more eclectic things in practice. So take the left arm up to the ceiling. Again, you can rotate the thumb out and rotate it in. Rotate it back out. Rotate it back in. One more time out. And then bring the left hand down. Now move the right foot in a bit closer and then have the left leg straight. So push strong through the left foot. Pull the left hip back. If I'm low, I'm really trying to move my leg to my face. So I'm not just getting my upper body down. You know, and I say this over and over and over again. It might take you a while to really understand that, which is really going to make a big difference in how you fold forward. So bend your left knee, then straighten the left leg out, pull in, bend the left knee again, and then straighten through the left leg. And then when you know, because we're close to the foot, you can see how the foot, and you might see that toes overlap or your foot just is stiff in some capacity. So the more your foot becomes more pliable, more flexible you'll be, the better balance you'll have. Bend your left leg and then step your right foot forward. So the right foot is forward and then you're just in a soft forward bend. And then what we're going to do is roll yourself up into a standing position. So when you roll up, just take the arms overhead, bend the knees, bring the weight into the heels, look up towards the hands if you can. See how your nose points to the ceiling or the wall, and that'll tell you which direction you need to turn your head. So I need to turn more to my right. Then come back up to straight legs, and then have the heels lift up again. So lift the heels off the floor, extend up through the arms, and then lower the heels, and exhale, lower the arms, just in a basic standing position. So what you'll do is, I'm just going to turn so that you can see me a bit better, but or be a little bit further out. So these are like Warrior 3 types of positions, but it's really to help stretch out the leg. It's going to be a bit of a transition. So I'm going to take my left foot up off the floor, just balancing, but we're going to this is the original position. You could stay here the whole time, right? But I'm going to come forward, keeping the knee into my chest, but I'm going to come forward halfway. I'm going to bring myself up, right? And maybe you're extending the leg out. By pulling the leg in, the top leg, it's more for the strength of the abdomen. It could be straight out, right? You could certainly do that. Bring yourself back up. And the last time we're going to come down, we're going to reach for the floor if we can, right? So it's more stable, but it's actually more based in flexibility. So you can come forward, you can come down, right? And then if you do want to extend the leg back, of course you can do that. I could be up on blocks. Those of you that want to take the leg up higher, certainly you could do that. And if I'm a person that wants to take the leg up higher, I would periodically lift the leg up more. So don't just, because if you take it all the way up, you really, really try, most likely you're going to cramp. So you obviously don't want to cramp in this position. Then bend the right knee if you need to. Bring yourself back up. And then just come back into a standing position. And you should feel like Obviously a lot of work on the right side, so you could always shake it out. Take the right foot up off the floor, and with the right foot up off the floor, just kind of see how you sit in space in terms of, again, some people lean too far back, some people pitch too far forward. Keep the knee into the chest, and then come forward, and then loading up the front leg, the foundational leg. So it's a bit more of a stretch. And bring yourself up, bring yourself forward, bring yourself halfway, right, back is straight. Could be lower too. You could bring yourself up. And then the last time we're gonna come down, right? So use a chair, of course, use a wall, keep your back straight. So you don't wanna come all the way forward, stay halfway. But then if you do come forward and down, you could extend it out. You can take the top leg up. Some people like to grab the leg, the bottom leg. You could certainly do that. I like to not use my arms sometimes so that I'm using more of the strength of my hip and my hip flexor. So the top leg could bend at any time, right? The bottom leg could bend at any time, right? And then you could, and lifting it up more, I'm forward, I'm down, but maybe that's not good for you just yet. And then bring yourself up halfway, bend the knee, of course, if you need to, and then come back up, and then just be in a standing position. So again, try to see how you habitually hold your weight when you stand, when you sit. Do you lean to one side? It's very common. Take the hands behind you, come up on the toes with the heels off the floor. Couple deep breaths here. And then you can lower the heels, and we'll come down onto your hands and your knees. So once you come down on your hands and your knees, push through the hands, round the spine into a cat stretch. Look forward, look up, back bend. Exhale, round your back. Back bend again, lift the chin, lift the chest. And then exhale, round your back, right? Take the hands to the left side, look high over the left shoulder, lift the head, lift the chest. Take the hands over to the right side. You can lift the head, lift the chest, keep the ribs in. Then come back into the middle. And then back in the middle, push to the hands, round the shoulders, round your back, come up into a plank. So coming up into a plank, pulling up to the belly, the ribs, gripping the floor with the fingers, the knuckles. Right? And then you're gonna lower the knees, and then when you lower the knees, what we're gonna do is kind of like a modified half moon, but on your knees. So you're gonna take your left leg out, kind of to the side, and then in taking it out to the side, you're really trying to kind of stack this area, because that's really what the pose is. Now your right hand, if it's further out than your right knee, you'll be able to stay up, right? If my hand's lined up with my knee, it's like a tightrope. So for you, that might be really difficult to do. The foot could be flexed or pointed. And then bring the left hand down and then come down on the left knee. Again, if my hand and knee are lined up, I'll probably fall over. So you can take your hand out to the side and then take the leg out to the, this is very good for strengthening the hip. I could take it back as I am. You could take your right arm up. Just to get, because this is really the pose. It's very similar to doing half moon. And then bring the right hand down, and when you bring the right hand down, we're going to come down onto your elbows, your forearms. And then when you come down onto your forearms, get strong through the belly, the ribs, hold yourself. I'm happy if you just stay here, of course. You could come down and do Sphinx pose. I'm going to spin the heels to the right side, and then take the left arm up to the ceiling. So push strong through I like the center of the forearm. That's where I'm pushing. Bring the left arm down, spin the heels to the left side, and take the right arm up. So, maybe you need more time on one side, but if it hurts, I would come out early and just build up more volume. Take a deep breath here, broad back, then bring the right arm down, and then bring yourself down into a Sphinx position. So in Sphinx, just keep pulling yourself forward in space. Try to see the weight in your hips, I'm happy if you stay here. You could look over the shoulders, very good for the neck. Bring your hands underneath you and come up into a low or a medium or a high cobra. And then coming up, I'm strengthening my glutes. I'm strengthening my abdomen. It's good to hold long, but you don't have a lot of body awareness. I think 5 breaths, 10 breaths are always a good starting point. Longer isn't always necessarily better. I think more frequency is better, like throughout the day. Doing yoga throughout the day or training throughout the day, I think is better than just all at once. And then bring yourself forward, bring yourself down, have your hands just underneath your shoulders, tuck through the toes, and if you can, lift straight up into a plank and go back up into a down dog. So pull all the way back up into a down dog. Couple deep breaths here. Pull back through the hips. Reach down through the heels. Again, it's a physical practice, but it's really more internal. So you're really getting stronger internally, and that takes it more, it's more mental. So walk the feet forward to the middle of your mat. Walk your hands back towards your feet. Be in a forward bend, soft forward bend, and then grab the elbows, bend the knees, sit the hips back in space, push the knees apart if they fall in. I'm a big believer in squatting. That's something that I would do throughout the day if I didn't have problems with my knees or my hips. It could be just 10 seconds, doesn't have to be like a minute or more, but you could build it up where you could squat for, collectively, start with like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then, I could squat for a very long time, and so could you. It's not just a matter of practice, right? Fold forward into a forward fold, then take the hands to the left, take them to the right, bring them into the middle, bring your feet together. So if I can, I'm going to step my left foot over my right foot, crossing my ankles, crossing my shins. Again, those of you that can't forward bend or you shouldn't forward bend, you could be standing, side bending, so much you could be doing. But a big part of balancing at half moon is getting the flexibility in the hamstrings. That's why I'm doing this. So bring the weight into the hands, bring the left foot next to the right, step the right foot over the left foot, and then, you can really see the difference between the two sides. That's why I love this so much. I feel a much greater exposure in my left hip. I feel it way more in my back on this side, and that changes. It's not always consistent. And then take the feet back into a neutral position and roll yourself up into a standing position. So roll yourself up. As you roll up, take the arms overhead, hook the thumbs, bend the knees. Just the tailbones down. It really, again, I'm an anterior pelvis type of person, so I want tailbone down. And then bring yourself back up, and you can bring your arms down. It's a basic standing position. So take your left leg up off the floor. Use your left hand as much as you need to. And this could be, I say this from time to time, like an external weight, like a little bit of weight. Say you have ankle weights. This can be really helpful in strengthening the hip. So take it out to the left a little bit, like a quarter of the way. Again, if you need to use your hand, use your hand. Take it all the way out to the left, or find an angle that you really need, and continue to try to lift the knee to the shoulder. If you're really working hard in anything, you might have to breathe through your mouth. You could bring it forward, you could pull it in, and you could bring it down. And then I'm going to bring the right foot off the floor. I'm going to take it up. As you take it up in space, if you really struggle with squatting, you can see why. It's hip flexion. You can take it out to the side. You combine that with how well your ankle flexes, dorsiflexion, how well the tissues are mobilized in the calf muscle. So keep taking the knee up towards the shoulder. you really want better posture, use a chair or a wall, great practice. And then you could bring it forward and you could bring it down. And then take the left foot into the right ankle, shin, or thigh. So I'm taking it up. I'm gonna push the heel into the inner thigh. I'm gonna try to lift up and just see how much pushing you really need. Let's say you push and it's negative in the knee, in the top leg. Don't push so much, but the connection of the foot into the inner thigh, because that's really dense and it's quite tight for people. Take the arms overhead and just say you could balance for a very long time. The foot's either crooked or you're compensating, most likely. There should be quite a bit of effort to keep yourself up, especially within the foot. You can bring the arms down, you can bring the knee forward, you can bring the foot all the way down. Take the right foot into the inner thigh on the left side. It's asymmetrical, so if you take a photo of yourself, you might be like, well, I look crooked. It's never gonna look perfect because there's asymmetry to the pose. You could take the arms overhead and wavering is very good because it's actually making the foot and the leg stronger. If you're not really challenged in a pose, it's not bad, right? It's just you're not really getting stronger. It's calming because you're breathing, but it's not developing as much strength. So you can bring the arms down and the knee forward and the foot down. So I'm gonna work into a half moon here, and I'm gonna do it maybe a couple times. But so if I was really unstable, I'd use a wall, or maybe just the corner of the wall, and then we're gonna do the right side first. So you want your hip into the wall. Use a chair to support the hand outside of the foot. And maybe triangle is all that you really need today, right? I like entering the pose from a triangle. So I'm gonna set up my block just in case I need it, in case you need it. So when I take my stance out, I'm gonna turn my right foot out. I'm gonna take my arms out. I'm gonna reach out to the right. I'm gonna grab the shin. I'm gonna take the left arm up to the ceiling. And again, maybe this is your pose. But I'm gonna reach for the block. I want the block to be, I want it to be stable more than anything. Because you shouldn't fall. So you're loading up the front leg and then you're coming forward and then you're taking the top leg up. Now you could take the block higher if you need it. I have a little end table that I could use. You could take the left arm up and then, just kind of see how your left leg sits in space. Is it too far back? Is it too far forward? You're turning through the torso, the trunk, right? Bend the knee anytime you need to, right? So you're cramping. And then bend the right leg and then you can hold the block to come back up. And then you could, take it over to the other side. You could position the block off to the left, take the arms out, really lift up. It's okay if it's not perfect, right? And then reach out to the left, grab the left shin, take the right arm up. And maybe this is the pose. Maybe you need this more. If I do reach for the block, I can grab the block outside of the left foot. I'm gonna take the right leg up. Sometimes the block is too close to you or it's too far away. And that's why you might be unstable. You could take the right arm up. And then as you take the arm up, you can push strong through the left foot. Maybe the block needs to be higher. I really don't use blocks for this. So I like the stability of using my hand. So it really depends on and that's why I don't really force props on people. Not that, props can be obviously very helpful. So take a couple deep breaths. Think I'm pulling back on your back leg and that you're getting more and more space through the upper body. And then bend the left knee and bring yourself back up. And then when you come back up, you're in a standing position. So just bring the feet back together. It's a neutral stance, a couple deep breaths. Again, keep improving upon your standing position. And we're gonna work a little bit more on your hips because that might be something to do with why you struggle with this. So take your feet out into a wide space And then with your feet up in a wide space, have your hands on your hips, come halfway. So this was like the Warrior 3 variation that we did. It's very much hamstring related. You're concerned with your back, you have osteoporosis. This is a good place to be, but you could bring your hands all the way down. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my feet out wider. And I'm gonna try to lift my thighs up and out. Knees shouldn't hurt, hips shouldn't hurt. And then when I'm asking you to take your feet out wider, your legs out wider, you could also squeeze your legs in. So as I squeeze my legs in, it's strengthening the insides of the thighs, and then we can lift the legs up and out. So take a couple deep breaths here. Breathe in, breathe out. If I'm all the way forward and down, right, that has its place too. Right, toe heel the feet in a little bit closer. As you bring your feet in closer, we're gonna do a little bit of twisting from this position. So I'm gonna come over to my right ankle with my left hand. I'm gonna take my right arm up to the ceiling. Again, you like those rotations in the arms and the shoulders, you could be doing that. Hips don't have to be perfectly squared. It's just a matter of leverage. So get broader through the shoulders, get broader through the back. Bring your right hand down, walk your hands over to your left ankle, grab your left ankle with your right hand, take your left arm up. Your knees could be bent. You could be up on a chair, right? You grab the foot if it helps you more. You use a block, or having the hand in the center is good as well. Again, you want to find the right angle, and then bring the top arm down, and then take the hands back in the middle. So toe heel the feet a little bit closer. Bring yourself back up. And what we're going to do is just different entry points to half moon. We're going to do half moon again. So a side angle might be easier and better, or it might be good, both good, but that's how we're going to get into it a little bit differently. And again, I could use the wall, I could face the wall, I could have my back up against the wall. But if you have weak hips, that's why I'm doing more of this today, is really to strengthen the outside of the hip. And then later in the class, we'll use the wall to help with your hips. So take your feet up into a wide space with the feet out wide. Turn the right foot out, turn the back foot in, take the arms out wide, bend the right knee. Really lift your thighs up and out, kind of like when we were in that forward bend earlier. And then what you're gonna do is bring the form on the thigh. Maybe that's what you're doing, but I'm gonna reach outside. So say you're like, oh, my block, right? Position your block so that it's outside of the right foot. And then take the left arm up to the ceiling, bring it forward, Again, it's just good options to be in different positions because you can see what's actually needed. Now come forward into your right foot if you're working on that. Take the left leg up, take the left arm up. Some people like to not use the hand at all. You could certainly do that. It's just a matter of, again, what you want to work on. So bend the right knee, bring yourself back up into a Warrior 2. So push the thighs apart, get nice and strong through the upper body, and then bring yourself back up. Turn the right foot in, turn the left foot to the left, lift the thighs up and out, root down through the tailbone, get a wider stance through here, this position. And then you're going to take the hand on the outside of the foot and give it time, right? It's what sometimes in a group setting, it's really not important that everybody comes in the pose at the same time, at the same speed, or the same duration. But take the right arm up. You could take it forward overhead. Deep breathing. And then I'm going to come forward into my left foot. As I come forward to my left foot, I'm going to take my right leg up. I'm going to take my right arm up. Again, don't use all of your effort, especially if you really struggle in this pose, because you'll just cramp up. Relax. Extend through the back leg, lift through the chest, turn through the upper body, and then come back up into a Warrior 2. In Warrior 2, right? Lift the thighs up and out, and then bring yourself back up to standing. Turn the left foot in, and bring the feet, back into a neutral stance, just neutral. So take the feet out a little bit wider than the shoulders. Turn the feet out just a bit. Take the arms out wide, have the tailbone down, push the thighs apart. I'm just, a little bit more of conditioning so that you get stronger and you have a good, a strong base. You'll be able to do more active things, whether it's yoga related or not. So you can push the thighs apart, tailbones down. If I'm a person that, hurts in my knees, I'm not going to sit super low or my hips. But as I do get stronger, I can sit lower. Sitting lower below the knees is actually easier. So you want to stay, just above the knees. Then bring yourself back up. Turn the left foot in. Turn the right foot out. Reach the arms out wide. Grab the right shin, the foot, or the floor. Left arm is up. You're turning your upper body to the left. Take the left arm behind the back if you can. You could grab the hip. It's easier to take the hand higher up on the back. Like my left hand is up in between my shoulder blades. So if I'm low, it's more difficult to take the hand up. If I'm high up on the leg, it can fit pretty nice up in between the shoulder blades. Relax. Push through the feet. Broad shoulders, broad upper back. Take your left arm up. Bring yourself up. Turn your right foot in, turn your left foot out. I'm gonna, just so that you can see this, take the arms wide, reach to the left, grab the shin. Again, don't get caught up in always doing it the same way, because eventually you won't benefit as much. So play around with exposing your body to different ways. You could take the right arm behind the back, you could grab the hip or the thigh, you could take the right arm, up in between the shoulder blades. And this side's going to be a little bit more difficult if you're right-handed. And then, I'm going to use more effort if I need it. This side's a little bit more difficult for me in a couple different ways. So I would hold it longer, right? So that I could work through what I need to work through. Or I'd revisit it later today or tomorrow, right? So that I can can stay better in balance. Take the right arm up, take a couple deep breaths, and then bring yourself back up, and you can turn your left foot in. You can just step your feet back together. I'm just facing the opposite way. So just come down into a seated position. So in a seated position, because we've done a lot of side bends, we're gonna work a little bit more on twist, and then we'll get into like what I said about the hips. But I'm going to take my right leg forward, I'm going to take my left leg back in space. I'm going to try to get my armpit and my knee together, just to get more upright through the upper body. Now if you did this up against the wall, you'd want your hips all the way back up against the wall. Most people, if they did this, their back would be up against the wall, and that's really what most furniture teaches the body to sit. And that's why a lot of people have back pain. You can bring the left leg down, take the right leg back in space. So when I sit on my sofa, I'm watching something. I don't do this all the time, but I'll put a block, or I have a yoga wheel, and I'll put it into my back, and that's a true 90-degree angle. Obviously you don't want to sit like that all the time, but it's a very good way to teach you how to sit better. So get a big lift in the upper body. Bring the right foot down. Have the legs bent, have the hands underneath your shoulders, turn the hands out. Articulate through the shoulders. And maybe this is all that you're doing, right? But lift the hips up off the floor. Drop down through the tailbone. Move the weight around, especially if you want to hold this for a long time. So you're like, I want to do this for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. You could do it, you'd have to move the weight around. You could take the head back in space, big lift in the hips, and then bring the head forward and then bring the hips down. And then with the hips down, take your right foot outside your left hip, have your left foot over your right knee, and then wrap your right arm around your left leg. Now, I hope you can see this, but I'm not doing the classic twist. I'm actually getting lower with my right shoulder. So if I needed to, I could get creative with something that could post my right shoulder into the floor. And it could be your left side. So you're doing the left and you're like, what? whatever arm is down, that would be the shoulder that you want to support it. And by hugging it in is a lot like pigeon. But the good thing is not that I don't like pigeon, it's just some people don't necessarily have the capacity to load up the hip. And it can be put you in a situation where it could hurt you, right? But this is nice because it's enough stress in the hip. You should feel a big stretch through the outside of the hip. And then it'll be so much easier to turn the feet forward when you walk. You notice people when they're walking around, wherever you're at, you'll see most people with their feet turned out. You can bring yourself back up. We're gonna twist to the left, and it'll be that much easier to get the hip down. Not that that has to be down. You could be sitting on the foot or put some sort of cushion or blanket underneath the hip. Keep lifting through the upper body, and then turn forward, and you can release the arm and the leg. So my right leg will be up, or my right leg will be underneath me. My left foot will be over, and then I'm gonna reach my right arm across. Actually, my left leg is underneath, and my right foot is over top. So I'm gonna take my left arm around my right shin, and then the right knee is pointed up. So whichever arm is down underneath you, that's what you could support yourself. Like I'm using this block, and the head can be at a kind of a weird place. So, you could support the head. You don't have to wrap the arm all the way around like I am. It's just really great for your back, your upper back. And then you're getting way, way deep into the capsule of the hip. So, and most people are really tight through here. Again, like you have a natural inclination to turn the feet out when you stand, when you walk. It's partially this is tight, but the inner thighs are weak, and that's why the thighs turn out, the femurs turn out. Take 2 more breaths here, and then bring yourself back up, and then you can take the right arm back behind you. As you get more depth in twisting, the shoulder could be past the knee, the armpit could connect into the knee. You can lift yourself up, away from your lower back. Take a couple deep breaths here. Right? And then you could turn forward and you could release the arm and the leg. So just come into a Baddha Konasana position. So it's like a modified, I use this a lot. So have the feet as wide as the knees, have the elbows on the insides of the thighs, squeeze the legs into the arms. And then as you squeeze in, at times you want to relax. You don't want to just squeeze up so much. Then just relax. We're just going to do that one more time. Squeeze in, push the legs apart if you need it. And then we're going to come out of that and bring the feet together, and then have the left hand on the left thigh, push into it, resist. Shouldn't be painful in the hip or the knee. If it is, don't want to be pushing so much. Release that, and then bring the right hand on the right thigh, push down, but lift up. Really the action is lifting your legs in to the midline, and then that'll help to open the hips more. So I'm pushing the knees apart. You could push them down too. It's just further out is where I'd start, and then the legs will appear, they will be lower. And then release that, or come out of that, and recross the legs, just a cross-leg position, and take the left hand to the left. Reach the right hand to the right. Take the right hand behind the head, lean back in space if you can. Lift the chest, turn through the upper body. Take the right arm up to the right, bring yourself back up, recross the legs, especially if you notice you'll always fold the same way. Take the right arm to the right, reach the left hand to the left, take the left hand behind the head, get a big, big lift in the chin and the chest, broad shoulders, broad upper back, right? And then take the left arm out to the left, and then you can bring yourself back up. So, have yourself positioned close to the wall. I'm just gonna stay where I am so you can see me. Just gonna do a little bit of abdominal work. Gonna work a little bit more on your hips and, you know, give you a relaxation. So you'll basically lie back on your back. As you lie back on your back, once you go back, you're like, oh, I really want to rest. You could do that. It just reminds me when I've taught so much over the years. I know it's good for people to rest at times, so you don't have to follow along. So bring your feet off the floor, and you'll notice that your lower back is more into the floor. It doesn't have to be perfectly matching the floor, but over time it can. Depends on how big your butt is. You can take your hands over your shoulders and then take the left leg forward in space, reach the right arm overhead, and keep the ribs in. You know, if it's easy, you're lifting too much from your lower back. Bring your hands over your shoulders, bring your knees over your hips, take your left arm overhead and your right leg forward in space. Keep the belly in, keep the ribs in. And then take the arms up, the knees up. Take the right arm overhead and the left leg forward. Pull in. Right? Bring the hands over the shoulders, the knees over the hips. Take the left arm overhead and the right leg forward. Pull in with the belly, pull in with the ribs. Then take the hands up, and then with the hands up, you could bring the feet down. Have the feet underneath the knees, and with the feet underneath the knees, ground out through the shoulders, elevate through the hips. So come up into a bridge. I say this often, you want to be lifting from your lower back, especially if you've had some back pain in the past. Those of you that have a posterior tilt, really key. Like if I was working with you one-on-one and I was, I could touch you, right? I'd have my hand adjusting your pelvis first, but then I would adjust the connective tissue of the lower back. And then what you can do is you can bring the hips down, and then when you bring the hips down, you can just take a couple deep breaths. So breathe in, breathe out. So we're gonna use a wall to help adjust your hips. So this could be just on your back where you're crossing your right leg over your left. It's just there's more leverage when you do this. I'm just moving some stuff around. So I'm gonna have my mat close to the wall. It doesn't have to be perfectly up against the wall, it's just so you don't slip. I'm on hardwood floor, so that's why I'm using the mat. And then just a basic thing you could do is go back on your back and then have your left leg at a 90-degree angle, have your right leg on your left, and then just push the knee away from the right shoulder. And then for a moment, lift the leg into the hand. So you're actually trying to guide the thigh, the right thigh in. So when we were on the floor and we were doing Baddha Konasana, that's the same thing. And just take a couple of deep breaths here. Really basic, but very good for the hips. As your hips develop, you can get closer to the wall, and then it's a deeper adjustment of the hip. So we're gonna add on to this, is what you're gonna do is push the left foot into the wall, ground the shoulders to the floor, and then lift the hips up, right? But really feel what it's like when you lower. So when you lower, that's when you can really feel the stretch happening within the hip. And then you can bring yourself up. So I'm gonna do this a few more times. So I'm gonna lower. I may wanna hold at a certain angle and then come down, right? And then, so you're like pushing in the thigh, you can continue to do that, right? One more time, you're gonna lift. And then you can slowly lower down. Now, when you really understand this, you can do more repetitions. Nothing crazy, but start with like 10. Then you could go back to pushing into the thigh. And then you can release that. Bring the right foot into the wall. Bring the left leg on top of the right leg. Push into the left thigh. You're close to the knee, but it shouldn't irritate the knee, right? I'm below the knee. I'm not pushing directly on the knee. But it feels like nothing on this side for me. Not nothing, but it doesn't feel as much as my right side. So you can resist that. Okay? And then I'm gonna have my hands over my elbows. I'm gonna push into the wall. I'm gonna lift my hips up. And then I'm gonna slowly lower. And then I'm gonna push, I'm gonna lift. And then I'm gonna slowly lower. And then one more time, I'm gonna lift. And then I'm gonna lower back down. And then I'm gonna go back pushing into the thigh. You have overlapping toes. You can interlace the fingers if you can reach the foot. So like you're shaking hands with your foot, right hand, left foot. If you're doing the left side, it's left hand, right foot. And then you can release that and then just go back to a regular bridge setup. So have the feet underneath the knees, have the hands over the elbows, lift the hips up off the floor, ground down through the shoulders, lift through the lower back. So think I'm pulling your hips forward towards your feet and that I'm pulling your shoulders back in space. Now, if you can, take your right leg on top of your left leg, elevate the pelvis, bring the right foot down, ground down through the right heel, elevate the left leg up. So I did ankle to knee in yesterday's class, if you took that class. So this type of series will help with that type of pose. And again, not really that important that you get that pose just yet. Bring the left foot down, lift from the lower back, ground down through the shoulders, and then you can bring your hips down. Grab onto the outsides of your feet if you can. It's a happy baby pose. And I say this often, really the side that you need is the difficult side. So it's great to grab both feet. It's very symmetrical, you can roll around, it's good for your back. But let's just say one hip is more inflexible. So play around with holding either foot and you really see what you need. Because when you do it symmetrically, it feels even and it's not. So you want to get more balance through the hips. And then you can bring the feet down, have the knees touch, and say you're just absolutely perfect. Just stay like this or go into a Shavasana. But I haven't taught it yet, but I really believe in fish pose. So if I'm in fish, I could do it with 1 or 2 blocks. You have a bolster or a really dense pillow, that works too, or a bolster. So I like the second level, but if I'm just starting with this, I have it on the lowest level. So it's just underneath the shoulder blades. And when it's just underneath the shoulder blades, start with your knees bent. If you don't have a lot of flexibility, put something underneath your hips. And sometimes the block can be too hard, so put a blanket over it. Right? But if I only had one block, that's why I'm showing it like this, is just take the hands behind the head. And with the hands behind the head, work on breathing, maybe, it's really, really intense. Know that you might be at the wrong height. So go lower, I'm on the second level. And then, as time goes on, then maybe the head is lower. And, I would just set a timer. And when you're like, wow, I really need to come out of this, that's your time. But then you could do it, a pose like this you could do before, after a meal. And it's so, so good for just posture. You can see that I'm moving, right? It's good to be static, but you might not necessarily be in the right position, so that's why I'm moving. Now if I use the block would be higher than the block that's supporting you. So if you really want to relax, have the block higher than the supporting block of the back. And then you can have your arms down beside you. Any point you're like, oh, I really need to come out of this, you come out, do some supine twisting, and you'll be good. You'll be really good and ready for your day. So you could stay like you are. You could also take the blocks out and lie back on your back, like I said, and be in a Shavasana. So when you're on your back and you're relaxing, if I'm fidgety physically, I'm not in the best position possible. So what I would do is I'd move in a position where I wasn't irritable physically, And let's just say you have a restless mind. Yeah, that's common. No one's immune to that. So what you can do is focus more on your breathing, sensations of the body. You could really tune into those points of attention. And that's really the beginning of meditation. And that's, I believe in a seated meditation, but not for everyone. You can meditate on your back. You can meditate in a chair. When you get really good at meditating, you could do it anywhere. Times Square, it's a really loud place. You can really get centered, and that's just a byproduct of practice. So when you're on your back, try to let go of controlling the breath. If you're really wrapped up in thought, you'll notice your breath is really shallow, or it almost even stops. So you want to get more, not that you're controlling it, but you want to get more into a rhythm. And we're all stressed at various degrees throughout the day. So get heavier in your head, and you'll feel your jaw relax, all the muscles around your eyes, your forehead, your scalp. And I say this all the time. I mean, maybe you don't have so much time on certain days, but at least practice a little bit before. And that could be many forms of practice. It doesn't have to be yoga. Practice something that's going to make you healthier or better as a person. Practice that before you eat, and then that becomes a self-practice, and then you can start adding on time, do 15 minutes of practice or half an hour or an hour. But I'm never really concerned with the time, it's more of the quality. So let yourself go, hopefully you feel great. And if you don't, I'd be adjusting my body. I wouldn't just be lying there. Let's say you're content with your relaxation and you want to move. You could wiggle your fingers, you could wiggle your toes, you could swallow a couple times, and then you could reintegrate, you could stretch more. But if you're ready, you could roll yourself up. You can come up into a seated position. You can sit, you can eventually sit nice and tall, take your time. I think it's very good to sit after. And this is all preparation for meditation or doing breath work. So, that's a part of what we're doing, So it's something you could add on, after class. So I had a great time today. I hope you enjoyed the class. You can always send me questions or say there's things you want to work on in terms of the class. I'm happy to do different things for you. My Venmo is Jon Witt Yoga, so if you want to make a donation, you could always Venmo me or PayPal me. If you're a New Yorker and you use Chase, you could always Zelly me or Zelle. Again, I hope you're very well, and connect with me and let me know that you're okay. If you're a person that's been taking my class for a while, there's so many people that I haven't been in contact with. Hopefully this will be over soon, where we have some normalcy. But many blessings, happy Sunday, and thanks for tuning in. Namaste.